all these wonderful classes that are online. So congratulations, welcome. My name is Tom Painter. My wife and I, LaDon, are the founders of the Success and Money Foundation.org. We're a nonprofit educational foundation. We teach kids, teens, young adults, and adults about success and money because you didn't learn it in school. And if you are learning it in school, we are a great resource to help you learn even more. Our mission is very simple: provide free success and money classes for anyone, anywhere. We have 3 submissions. One is to be able to provide financial rewards for people as they go through our classes that they can put into their investment accounts. Number 2 is for them to be able to take and help other organizations. And number 3 is to help those in need. So today we're going to be talking with my good friend, Mr. Ray Goodson. We have a lot of things in common, a lot of people that we know together. And so first thing we're going to do is we're going to show you this wonderful video. So Kyson's going to share our screen, and we're going to take you to the Success and Money Foundation.org. And as you know, as a nonprofit, our goal is to help others in need. And we have those wonderful things. But on the very bottom, you'll see that we have all kinds of organizations that we support. And our goal is that for every hour you go to class, then the foundation is going to donate a pair of eyeglasses. We're going to feed somebody or provide some clean water for people. And this is one of the organizations that we're working with Mr. Ray Goodson that we're very excited about. And I want to tip my hat to Ethan. Ethan was a missionary, a Christian missionary in the Philippines. And he got a chance to meet a lot of people while he was there. And he was personally exposed to Ray and some of the things that he's done. So the thing we're going to do first is we're going to pop out and we're going to watch this incredible video, and then I'm going to have Ethan jump in and I'm going to have him introduce our first guest, Mr. Ray Goodson. So let's go ahead and watch that first one. And again, it's down there in the bottom on the organizations that we support.
I'm just going to want to add your sound there, Tom. Share.
Is that mine or is it Kyson that has to share?
Might be Kyson. Just within Zoom. Yeah.
For this family, the day often begins without breakfast. Rise and Rebuild is providing solutions, training local workers at their extensive gardens. As children prepare for school, over 100 employees prepare for the children. Going to school is now filled with excitement because they know help is on its way, so they can enjoy life and focus on their future. Rise and Rebuild provides fresh produce, builds nutrition centers, sanitary restrooms, and involves parents, which improves school attendance, academic scores, body weight, and overall health. Feeding 10,000 students daily with a goal to feed 100,000 each day. Join us in feeding the children.
Rise and Rebuild's evolution started right after the most powerful storm that's ever hit land, and several hundred volunteers returned to help rebuild the homes of those whose houses had been destroyed. It became apparent that there was a serious need for bathrooms, which over here are called comfort rooms or CRs.
And our great friends here, Ray and Deborah, on Rise and Rebuild, the CR, and the LDS family here in Cebu. They've been very, very helpful. Let me say it has really improved the quality of life of Cebuanos, wherever your projects are.
After we had built the first 17 CRs, we realized that we could drill potable water wells, because those two things sanitary facilities, and potable water reduces infant mortality by nearly 70%. We were drilling a well at a high school. We found that these school students were malnourished and that the teachers on their own were cooking lunch for them out of their own money.
Here in our school, we have about 205 malnourished children. They usually absentee pupil because they don't have food in their house. And also, they are poor in academic.
It is hard to focus without eating a food.
We sat down and said, this is a problem we can solve. We will build a kitchen and a dining room, fully equipped it, and we'll put together a program that will take care of some portion of malnourished school children. We built our first nutrition center. The blocks that we made were 15 to 20 times stronger than the hollow blocks, which have traditionally been used in construction here. But our blocks go together like Legos and require mortar only where you put the rebar in. Those are the reasons that it reduces the cost so drastically. Besides that, it looks a lot better than hollow block.
So our bricks is made of sand, dirt, and cement. And we mix it, put it in a press, and then dry it and cure it for 28 days.
One of my pupils is a recipient of this feeding program. Before, they have no food at home. They even eat once a day. But when the feeding program is started, she came to school every day, especially during feeding time.
Baga tumaas ang grado nila.
The grades have improved. The weight of my children has improved because they can eat in school. When the children is properly fed, they can answer the questions. They listen to the teacher. They participate in class. They will do everything what the teacher says because they are properly nourished.
Nutrition centers were so successful, we realized that we needed to have a method that would supply the nutrition center with vegetables that could, in fact, provide extra nourishment to the children.
We started clearing the land. It is a 6.5 hectare property. And then we start planting vegetables, okra, sweet potato, cucumber, taro, squash, string beans, patola, moringa, turmeric, lemongrass, corn, papaya, banana, eggplant, tomatoes, and pineapple.
We deliver produce to the schools every other day. The schools have to agree if they want us to build a nutrition center, they have to go to the government and get an allocation of food. And then the PTA has to find parents that are willing to cook the food every day. Our plan is we will have a nutritionist who will make up the menus that include all the vegetables that we grow. One of our goals is to produce enough fresh produce that we can sell some and pay for the salary of the gardeners. The demand for produce is so high and our vegetables are the best that are available. So we have no difficulty in selling all we can supply. It only took us 5.5 months to get to the point that we were self-sustaining in the garden.
Here in this property, we built the training center for the gardener, the greenhouse, the building where we mix the fertilizer, the brick factory. We have teams who work for the brick factory. We have 32 gardeners, teams who work to build CR and nutrition centers. And we have other 12 persons pulling all the boulders so that we can plant vegetables. And then we find out that some of our workers, especially the women, they quit working because they have problems who will take care of their children. And then we end up putting a daycare center right next to the brick factory. And we hired a teacher who can take care of the children and teach basic writings, the colors, the shapes, and the alphabet.
The other reason that we are expanding what we do to the fish, pigs, the chickens, is so that we can go into high schools and offer a food program. The government has funds available for elementary school for food. They do not have funds available for high schools. So our goal is to be able to go into a high school and offer a feeding program that will greatly cut down on the number of malnourished children. With the success we were having here in Leyte with Ben's efforts, we decided that we should do the same thing in Cebu. We hired our manager over there and his wife. We have a brand new rig that drills wells down to as much as 400 feet deep, which means you will always get potable water.
We ran out of water for 3 weeks already. Rise and Rebuild called me up. They will do the project na. We are 120 families who can benefit this project. Yay!
And having had that success, it was important for us to move on to Luzon, the biggest island in the Philippines. And we have now started a garden and a block factory in Tarlac. One of our goals is to not only make the garden self-sustaining, but also make the brick making self-sustaining. We are beginning to sell bricks commercially. One of the reasons that our employment efforts here are so satisfying is that we have nearly every trade employed here.
It helps me to practice my profession as well as a teacher, because I am pregnant, so I can earn a money for the preparation of my labor for my baby.
We have carpenters and welders who, when they build, they can build from the ground up. They can put the roof on the building. In the event of a typhoon or an earthquake, building will withstand any normal sort of catastrophe that seems to happen here frequently.
Before, my income is not enough. It's just barely enough for the food. So my kids stopped going to school. But with my employment in Rise and Rebuild, everything is okay. Even my one daughter is now in college.
The other thing is that we are training these people so that their skills make them more valuable for everyone, so that a carpenter can go on the open market and make a livable wage.
It's not just about the comfort room, it's not just about the water system, but it's about people.
Since the nutrition center is built, the weight and the academics are improving.
Feeding more children through our feeding program, I believe we can have that here in Cebu, and I welcome very much the concept.
They are now 100% with their attendance.
God said, you've helped us a lot. Thank you very much.
We hope that this will solidify our partnership, not just for this generation, but the next generation.
Our long-term goal for Rise and Rebuild is to feed about 100,000 children every day. Currently, we are feeding more than 10,000 children every day.
I will say to them, thank you so much.
Okay, that's pretty awesome. I'm going to have you spotlight Ray, myself, and Ethan, if you would, please. So this is a wonderful, wonderful organization. I'm going to introduce Ethan and Ray, but just some of the background on both of these gentlemen, as well as myself, is that we served a Christian mission. Actually, for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we served a mission, and Ray was one of the very first, I guess he was the very first Mormon missionary that came to the Philippines. And later on, he came back as what we call a mission president, which is responsible for a lot of Christian missionaries. And then as a successful businessman, you'll notice that the systems that we teach, the strategies we teach, is to help you to have a better life and to be more successful. When you're more successful, you can help other people. The way you become successful is finding problems to solve. Your goal is to go find problems and then figure out how to solve those problems with yourself and with other people. Add more value and study how other people have done it and been successful. And then your job is to copy what they've done. put those same systems in place. So one of the great things that I want to do is I want to introduce my good friend, Mr. Ethan Bird. Ethan and Ray are going to be taking a big part of this next segment. And Ethan's had a lot of experience with this. Ethan was also a Christian missionary, a Mormon missionary in the Philippines. And he is one of the people that have introduced us to a lot of great people that has helped us with. So Ethan, I'm going to let you jump in here, and I'm going to have you and myself, and we're going to ask Ray some questions and let him go from here and kind of talk about the systems that he's put in place and how he's made this successful, kind of the orientation of it. And then we'll do some Q&A afterwards. If you have a question for Ray, I want you to put it into the chat, and then Ethan and I will take those questions from the chat and be able to send them over to Ray. Ethan, go ahead.
All right. All I'll say is Ray is someone I've looked up to for a long time. Like Tom said, he was a mission president. He was the first person from our church that served as a missionary in the Philippines. And Ray can tell you more about that. But he was later a mission president. And then my mission president served as a missionary for Ray. So a lot of my experiences in the Philippines are thanks to Ray getting started there, and getting it ready for other people to go over as well. So I was actually able to visit one of their gardens. I lived in Tarlac in the Philippines for a while, near Daryl. Daryl can tell more about it later as well. Where I got to see, all of that work that was in that video. It's real. They're really doing it, and it's just awesome to see. Ray is somebody who sees a problem and he goes out and fixes it. So, Ray, you can tell us a little more about that. And
well, we saw the need for assistance at the level that most people live, and that with our help, we could help them lift themselves through employment, through education, and it has worked out fairly well. We have probably nearly 500 employees in the Philippines, not just in Tarlac, but in Lucban, in the San Pablo area, and So Good on Cebu Island, and you saw pictures of the garden on Leyte, which has been very successful. But we have found it's very satisfying to help people. We consider ourselves almost native to the Philippines because we came first in 1961 as the first missionary, and then returned in the 70s and have been back many times. And now Rise and Rebuild has a perpetual involvement in the Philippines, not only with the gardening and feeding malnourished children, but in brick making and enabling people to make a living by serving their fellow men. And we have found this to be very satisfying. We try to be in the Philippines twice a year, January, February, and March, and then usually once in September. But some of you, I'm sure we have met.
Okay, we've got one question coming in. They're asking if you accept any volunteers at any of your locations in the Philippines. They're saying they live nearby, and yeah.
We do. For instance, the mission president in San Pablo takes missionaries and volunteers in the garden every week. We have volunteers who work in the garden in Tarlac. We have volunteers at every garden.
That's great. And I saw in the video that the gardens are self-sustaining. Can you tell us more about how those are able to keep themselves running and pay for the workers?
Well, the idea was to sell half of the produce to subsidize the gardener's salaries. In the beginning, that worked fine. The problem was during the pandemic period, there was so much need for food that we had to stop selling vegetables, and we supplied food to not only malnourished children, but you had families without food. And so we began to supply food from the various gardens into organizations that needed help. And it's been successful in getting some groups through the pandemic period. Now, we're starting up again. School is back in session, and because we feed the children not only at the schools, we feed the children at the barangay level. And the thing that we are happiest about is if the parents get involved in our program, in as little as 60 days, their children move above the malnourished line. And our research shows that they stay above the malnourished line. So we're quite excited about our ability to change the impact of malnutrition in the Philippines in a small way.
Ray, I've got a question for you too. You know, throughout your history, you've had the model of sharing. You know, not only did you share the gospel of Jesus Christ, but you also have been a true giver, and you've been very successful as a businessman. Now, as a business person, it looks like you're using the same principles that you did to run your businesses as you are to helping other people. Can you talk about some of the business principles or success secrets that you've used that have helped you to be very successful?
Well, I believe you have to understand the needs of the people that you labor among. And you have to hold out a image of what your workers can become, because without workers, people like you and I flounder. We have to have people who grasp the goal and help us get to that goal. In my last company, everybody that worked there was a shareholder, and they benefited. We eventually sold the business and their shares were redeemed, but just keep in mind, every shareholder of the 500 people that worked there owned part of the company.
So in business, and so I guess my question would be is if you had a chance to talk to your grandchildren that are young, you know, your young grandchildren, what are some of the other success secrets or success strategies that you would use that have been very influential in your life? And what advice would you give to someone to help them to be more successful?
Well, I think, you know, this is pretty basic, but I would try to tell my children that hard work is the key to success, and they have to be willing to work hard. The world is full of people who don't want to work for what they get. And I would hope that my grandchildren understand that success comes as a result of effort. And, you know, I think that, I had one of my granddaughters just come back from her missionary effort, and I could tell, and she talks about the fact that she was the hardest working sister missionary in her area, and she had tons of success. Hard work brings success.
So I'm sorry, in addition to the hard work, there's also some kind of systems or strategies or some things that you would want to give to the next generation. If you only had 90 days to live and you've got to impart with your wisdom to your grandkids, what would you tell them?
Well, I think the thing that we tried to bring into our business, the last business, was that even the janitor was a shareholder in our business. That you have to have people that you are surrounded with that grasp your vision. The people who do the menial tasks have to have motivation, or they're not as successful as they might be. But I would hope that the whole concept of sharing, that's what making everybody a shareholder does. It means you have shared your success down with everybody that's involved with you. I just think that you can't be successful without bringing people with you. There are very few businesses that an individual can lock himself in a closet and make money. You need to be able to bring people, sell them on the vision that you have, and get everybody working together. When you share, everybody tends to work together. You avoid petty jealousies. You avoid all the problems that major companies stumble over.
You know, one thing, sorry, Ethan, one thing that I've learned is that people, you know, your job as an employee, now some of you may own part of the business, maybe not, but as you get started, you're going to be an employee for someone. Your job is to help make that enterprise successful. The way you do that is by adding more value. You add more value than someone else. And number two is you solve bigger problems. And we study successful people to be able to do that. Now, as you're working for someone, the goal isn't to get a paycheck. The goal is to learn how they did it and to model them. If you'll do that, then you can solve bigger problems and add more value. Now, many of you would stay with the same employer, and that's wonderful because you're a stakeholder, meaning that you have a say in the business. You might not have ownership, but you have a stake in the business, especially if you're just an employee. Once you get going and you figure out how to do this, either the employer will give you more money because you're more valuable, or you can take your skills to someone else. Now, eventually, you're also going to do what we call a side hustle or a small business. All of you should have a small business as well. Some of you will have a job, spouse will have a job, and maybe you'll have a small business. Because remember, step number one, as you can see behind me, step number one is to make more money. You do that by adding more value and solving bigger problems. Now, if your employer won't give you any extra money or it's not appropriate for them to do so, someone else will. But your job is to take those things and go to the next level and make the enterprise more profitable. The more profitable it is, then the more opportunities that they have to be able to share and help other people. So that's really kind of key. And Ray, as a businessman, you have had some major, major successes. And I will almost bet you that the way that you run your household, the success principles of your household, the success principles of your finances in your home are not much different than the way that you approach your businesses, which are probably not much different than the way that you run your charity work. Would you say that's true?
No, that's very true. You know, one of the things that we do in Rise and Rebuild is you saw the brick making capacity that we have for making blocks, and the fact that we can make houses for 40% less than anybody else. But we encourage our employees to find people who want houses, and the employees on their own time will build those houses, therefore making extra money, as long as it's not during their working time. But they do it on weekends, and they have built some lovely homes in various areas.
Okay, Ethan, do you have some more questions for Ray?
Yeah, we've got a bunch of questions coming in here. The first one's from Daryl, and he's asking, Ray, what can you suggest for the people who wanted to help but they don't have huge resources to back them up. You know, someone who just wants to get in and start helping others.
Well, I think you have to be willing to start small with help. Rise and Rebuild started by building CRs. You know, I assumed that when we saw the need and the government officials said the same thing, we need communal CRs. And that was a small enough task that I could undertake that. So we built 17 the first year, we built 60 the next year, we built 80 the next year. But it was that first start that really started Rise and Rebuild. You know, if people ask me, could you have envisioned what Rise and Rebuild has become today? And I'd have to say, I did not envision what it has become, because I was looking at the next step. I was just looking at getting 17 CRs built the way we had designed them.
You know, what's interesting is that you found a small problem. You started with fixing a small problem, what happens to be a bathroom.
Yeah.
It has massive impact for the positive or negative if it's not dealt with. And so you fixed one, and then you were able to take what you learned from that one and duplicate it again and again and again and again.
The other thing was we had to listen to the people that we were serving. They told us they needed a place to do their laundry out of the rain. So on the back of our CRs, we put a place where women could come and wash their clothes while it rained. Because, you know, in some places in the Philippines, it rains once in a while. So, you know, you have to listen to the people that you're serving. After this last typhoon in December, we went to Bohol, who many families had lost their homes. We invited the families in. We said, what do you have to get by? And they met and came back and said, all we need is a 12 by 12 house. Well, we built 100 of them. And, you know, I have been around, visited those families in their home. And then I look at what they've done. They've added a porch in the front. They've added a wet kitchen on the side. I mean, what they have done with the 12 by 12 house is amazing.
Ethan, do you have some more questions?
Yep. So we've got another one from Joan. She's asking, do you or could you also teach individual families how to grow their own food for their own use? So not only in the gardens, but in their own home.
We do that. We ask the parents to grow a small garden in their own neighborhood, and we provide them with the fertilizers and the seedlings. We provide those for nothing.
You know, Ray, I've got an interesting story I want to tell you about a good friend of mine that he lived up in Rexburg, and this is a family of boys and some, you know, some, of course, some girls too. And they were raising tomatoes, you know, raising tomatoes in the backyard. And the one said, you know, Dad, I've looked it up. I figured out what it costs to water these plants, for the labor it takes for these plants, you know, and things like that. And you know, it just doesn't make financial sense for us to grow a garden. You know, it doesn't make a sense to raise these tomatoes and then sell them. And the dad said, son, I'm not raising tomatoes. I'm raising children.
Mm-hmm.
So his whole purpose was to teach his kids how to work, to teach them success strategies. And then from there, they could be successful. You know, as you look at your life, you know, you have to connect the dots going backwards. I look at the things that my dad taught me, the example that he did. You know, not so much say it, but did it, and then involved me, experience involved me in doing it. And now I'm 63 years later, and I look at some of the things that he taught me, how I've used those throughout my life, and taken that strategy used and done a very big job with it. So just like training people and teaching them how to work, how to create a small business, how to create a garden, how to be able to take these to fruition, to resell them, you're going to do that. The only difference is as you grow older, you're going to add zeros. You're going to make it bigger and bigger and bigger, which you've done with your businesses. You've had some very, very successful businesses. And as you've taken those businesses and made profits with those businesses, you've employed a lot of people. In my lifetime, I've probably had 500 to 1,000 employees that I've hired throughout my lifetime that hopefully not only did we give them a job, but hopefully we taught them a trade to help them have a better life. And you've done the exact same thing. And then as you continue to do that and are successful, then the next thing is to create these enterprises, because you treat these enterprises the same way you would treat your business. The difference is it's not necessarily for you to make money, it's for you to be able to help other people. Can you address that just a little bit?
Well, I think that when we were at the garden in Tarlac this year, we brought all the workers together and we posed for a photograph. The interesting thing about those workers, they have worked for us for 3 years. I always wonder why they don't leave and find a better job. But in the Philippines, sometimes that's not as easy to do as it might be in some other countries. But I hope that they know I'm concerned about them as individuals. As I walk around our factory here in Salt Lake, we don't even own it anymore. But I stop and talk to all the workers about what they're doing, how their family is. Are they burdened with problems? And they need to know that I care about them as individuals, that they are not padding my pocketbook, so to speak, at their expense. And I think the thing that I believe in is that it takes people to make money, and we have to be willing to A, share, and B, we have to view them. I think late in the Savior's life, he said to his disciples, you have become my friends. And I think that we need to practice that in the business world. We need to make friends of those who we have surrounded ourselves with, those that we have tried to instill our vision into.
You know, Zig Ziglar said it best. He said the quote, "The only way you can get what you want out of life is to help other people get what they want out of life."
That's a great.
And your businesses, you've done exactly that. Your job is to help those that work for you. And then the goal is to help them get to the next level, to have a better life. And if they do that, then of course that's going to reflect back into the business. And as a business owner, it'll become more profitable. And your goal is really to share, which is very highly complimentary to you. Okay, Ethan, we have a couple more questions.
We've got a few more. Let me just search through. One person, I'll ask two at once here. One person is asking if you took an engineering course and that's how you're able to, I'm guessing they're wondering about how you're able to solve all these problems, making different bricks and different seeds and all fertilizers.
Well, I think that the biggest thing is don't be afraid to try. I know nothing about building bricks, but I knew that there were some places that they knew how to build the kind of bricks we wanted to. So we sent two of our people to Thailand and they learned how. But I think that one of the things I did in my last financial venture was I developed a blast-proof wall that would withstand explosives. Now, I didn't know anything about blasts and the kind of explosions that you experience with terrorists today. But by pulling together hundreds of research projects, we were able to get patents, a series of patents on a blast wall that works better than anybody else's blast wall. And I think perhaps I was too dumb to realize I couldn't do it. But I think don't be afraid to try it. That's how you're going to find success, is by trying things that someone else is not doing.
You know, and on top of that, if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough.
There you go.
You need to fail a lot, because success is a series of figuring out what works and doesn't work. And honestly, I don't know what works, but I'm willing to test, willing to try, willing to fail. The only, and I'll just tell you about the foundation. I didn't think the foundation was going to work. I honestly didn't know if this would work at all, but I knew I had to try. And if it failed, great, I can cross it off and not worry about it. But I was willing to try and willing to fail. And then it's really started to take off. But it took 2 good years before we had any success whatsoever. We have another piece on here about Carolyn talks about she witnessed the 100 houses. And the city is B-O-H-O-L, Bohol, I think it is. After the
Bohol, yeah.
And she says after the typhoon, so she was there, she watched that. And she says, thanks, Sir Ray. So that's pretty impressive. Where did you guys kind of get the capital and the money to be able to do this? Because it's probably going to be somewhat expensive to do, or maybe not.
No, we, the funny thing about that whole experience from that latest typhoon, we spent 300,000 US dollars. But the big things were in what our people did. The typhoon hit, and a day later, our people were in the affected areas with fresh vegetables, with protein. We brought our mechanics down. We fixed 8 of the government's wells that had been broken for years. We got them going again. People lined up for 4 blocks to get fresh water. But our people know that when there's an emergency, we jump in with both feet. Bohol was hit very hard, and homes were just totally destroyed. I've got photographs of homes that there's nothing left. But everybody pulled together in the rebuilding of those houses.
I have another, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just know how grateful those people who got houses are, because they had a big fireside to thank us for our efforts. But you have to understand, we're not doing this for the thanks. We're doing it because it changes people's lives. And if you have experienced receiving something like that, you will probably be very likely to step in and help someone else.
Ray, it helped their lives, but it really blessed your life.
It does.
That is a huge piece. When you give, the only way you're the one that's going to receive it. Tony Robbins says that the secret to living is giving. And it's a business principle. It's a spiritual principle that most people don't get. But as I've worked with these very successful people from all around the world, they're very big givers, because when they give in business, they get, because you're helping other people, then they want to reciprocate and help you back. And so that is pretty impressive. I've got a gal that says, I wish I had a boss like you, Ray. Almost all my employers are not concerned out of their personal life. Having ran some pretty good sized businesses, one of the interesting things is that you don't really know what's going on in that businessman's life. You know, it's a massive responsibility for an employer to make sure that the math works, that there's enough money, that there's enough revenue to take care of the people and to make the businesses work. The majority of businesses that start are going to fail. And so just be aware that that individual's probably got an awful lot on their mind, and it's very tough and very stressful for that businessman to do it. In addition to that, all of you are going to have a small business. All of you are going to have a side hustle. And your job is to treat other people so that you can help them get what they want, and that will in turn help you get what you want.
Mhm.
All right, Ray, any other last pieces of advice you have?
Well, you know, I may be selfish, but when I get to the pearly gates, I want thousands of Filipinos standing up there screaming, "Let him in, let him in."
Ray, I think you've already got that figured out. I don't think you've got a problem in that area. Ethan, last little pitch you have?
I just want to say thank you, Ray, for all the good work you guys are doing. And I hope we can do some more helping support you guys as well through the foundation.
Great.
And I mean, to everybody else, I just want to summarize some of the stuff you said. I thought it was really great. You're saying to find a problem, you're going to want to listen to the people that you're trying to help and find out what they actually need. And then Tom and Ray kind of tackled this together and said, you're going to want to find a problem that's big enough that you can solve it. So wherever you're at, find a problem that you can solve that one, you're going to learn, and then be able to keep moving forward and solve bigger problems. So thank you.
What I noticed is that Ray didn't solve the problem. Ray got people together and then got out of the way. He connected the people together and they solved it.
Yep.
If you're smart enough to solve the problem on your own, you're probably not looking at big enough problems. You need to have a big enough problem that you need to connect with other people to bring together, to brainstorm, to figure it out with different backgrounds to make it all work. And again, you know, guys, all of you are going to have a small business. All of you are going to have jobs. You're going to make money your whole life. Your job is to be able to provide for your family, to give them a better life. Every parent I've ever talked to, there's a couple things in common. One, they all say, I want to give my children a better life. I've been all over the world and I've seen this countless times. And number two is, the one thing that I've also noticed is that from a financial point of view, every parent says the one thing they wish they would have done was start earlier. They wish they would have started earlier versus later on in life, learning success principles, putting a little bit of money away, having it work for you, an investment account, starting a small business, and learning successful principles and passing them down to the next generation. So I'm so grateful for Ray for being here. I'm grateful for Ethan and his crew. I
was just going to make one quick point, if you don't mind. I saw on the call there was somebody from Bacolod. I want you to know we're coming to Bacolod. We're going to have a major garden and a major brick making operation. We will employ 300 people in the Bacolod area. So we're coming. Be patient.
And again, learn from Ray and what they do, and then you go copy that and do it again. You don't have to go work for a massive organization. You have to learn how they did it. What's the recipe of success? How did they make that cake? And then replicate that and do it on your own. And hopefully you've got a bunch of them that fail so you can learn from them. But once you get that recipe down, just like building those bricks, boom, 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 boom. We could call that a cookie cutter. You just roll out the dough, get a little cookie cutter, and punch, 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 and you just bring them out there as fast as you can. Okay, good. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Daryl, I've got Daryl on. Daryl, do you have any last questions that you might have? Or Johnson that's on with us?
No, I just want to express my gratitude to Ray. And later on my thing, I'm going to show some of the pictures that we've captured when I put all the youths in our ward to work on one of the garden here in Tarlac.
Good.
So Ray, if you can stay on for a few minutes, we're going to say goodbye to our friends from all over the world on Facebook Live, and then we're going to come back for our next segment which is going to be Daryl is going to be teaching us, and we're going to be talking about the things that he is an expert in, as well as kicking off and getting those investment accounts open and things like that. So this is Tom Painter. Thank you so much for watching. You know, make a difference, make it happen, and remember, every life is precious. Every life, every spirit, every soul has equal value, but not every life has equal value in the marketplace. So just remember those two things. Treat everyone with respect, love all, help all, and as a result, it's going to help you to have a better life. Thank you, guys. We'll be right back for our next segment. Thanks for watching.